Hello, hello everyone. I did not record our last Zoom call where we did the review on the previous chapter of thoughts and where we did the chapter on the synchronic lines. So I'm gonna do that solo without you guys on the call. So at least you have it. So first we're gonna review the chapter of thoughts with the Q&As. And I'm just going to read the paragraphs, and I had sent out some fun Q&As for you to answer, and I'm just going to identify them, but I'll read out the paragraphs. Thoughts was a fascinating topic because we learned a few things. We learned that we don't originate our own thoughts. Very few moments in our life when we are able to originate original thoughts. That happens when we are aligned with our free will. And it is said that in someone's lifetime, it's about 2 minutes. The rest of the time, we are elaborating thoughts. And we're going to go through the points as we reviewed when we did the chapter on thoughts. So this is a Q&A. It would have been the fun Q&A. And I'm going to read the paragraphs, and then I'll give you the answers. So, thoughts. According to Dahmener philosophies, thoughts represent a form of energy that is distributed throughout the universe in the form of a stream or currents. And while it is an indispensable element of evolution of living forms, it is not directly produced by them. Producing thoughts is an act of creation, which mankind and other living forms don't have the capacity to do. What we do is elaborate thoughts. And I'm going to see if I can just put this on a bit of a... Okay, we're recording again. Okay, so we were producing thought is an act of creation, which mankind and other living forms don't have the capacity to do. What we can do is elaborate thoughts. We actually have an ecosystem of elaborated thoughts that function like a food chain. Once we elaborate thoughts, they are transformed and suitable for species belonging to a different level. And we have 40 levels preceding us, under us. Then there's mankind, and then there's 9 levels higher, where non-material forms, divine forms, are elaborating thoughts. Now, at these higher levels, the thoughts that they are elaborating at some point of these 9 higher levels, they are also creating thoughts. They are in an evolution of complex enough forms that they can actually contribute to the thought streams instead of just elaborating. So the higher up we go, the more they're involved. Like we said, do only about 2 minutes of real original thoughts. The rest of the time we're elaborating. The higher forms will do more of that. Now, mankind is also a bridge form, so it's in an interesting position because it can transport thoughts from the material plane to the spiritual plane. So if we are not creating thoughts, what is it that we do? And the answer is we just elaborate them and we remember thinking. Yeah, that's it. Now, our minds cannot, so this is also important. So our minds cannot act directly on matter. So we must use our hands instead. This is why action is important. It's the only way we can transform matter. So thinking about something is great, but then you have to put it into action in order to have an impact on the material plane. And now we know why, because in our thoughts, we're just elaborating. We're not really, having an impact in the material world. And we're here to impact the material world. So we have to act. And in the rare moments we do create thoughts is when we use our free will. During our lifetime, we have about 2 minutes. when we are using our free will and creating original thoughts. And the question that we asked is, why don't we do more of this original thought? And the concept of the rivers was discussed, which are, the rivers are our conditionings, which means that we react to stimuli most of the time rather than based on neutral evaluation of the present moment. If we were free of these conditionings, we would access more often the power of thought creation. Thought, this is also another point, thought is life. Without thoughts, there is no life. Thought streams, and this is important, thought streams have a well-defined flow path, often following the synchronic lines, which is the next chapter. Life forms cannot exist without the stream of thoughts. It's almost like nourishment for us. Thought streams can deviate, and when they do, there is a drastic fall in evolution. So if thoughts fall dramatically, we go back to the Stone Age because we don't have those elaborated thoughts to work on, and we go back to more simple tasks. If thoughts just decline, we have intellectual capacity that drops. And there is a mention in the book, page 141, that we are currently experiencing a reduction in the thought stream, which began in 2001 and is worsening slowly but steadily. What can cause this? What can cause the thought streams to be weakened? There's a number of elements. One is time technology, so something that's used to damage time, because the fabric of time and thoughts will follow the fabric of time. So if the fabric of time is getting thinner at times, we learned of the time islands and time breaks. You know, time islands when the pieces of times are ripped off from the time sphere. So around those areas, we don't have the flow. The flow of thoughts can't reach us. So that's why it would diminish. And we are on a time island, 600 years out. So it's possible it's because the tear of that time island is already being felt in the time fabric. The other one is the fabric of time. It's a time damage to the stream, time technology that's used to damage the stream, and the fabric of time could be damaged. What can we do to remedy this? When this book was written 15 years ago, there was not yet a solution on how to repair the fabric of time. I don't know if today there is. But one of the comments that was said is, if we can maintain thought temperature high, and what we mean by thought temperature is if we can have thoughts at a high level, like doing this book club, thinking about all these ideas, that helps to keep the thought temperature high. So living in community, like they do in Damanhur, with everybody studying these same principles and trying to elaborate them and trying to understand them more deeply, that increases the thoughts that go in the thought stream. So anything like that is beneficial. So any kind of work you're doing with groups or other people where you are elaborating different ideas is healthy for the thought stream, so that you can keep it high. And then this is the Hogwarts part and Star Wars part of the book. There are centers out there, centers of thought preparation, thought preheating. So these are monasteries, if you want, centers throughout the universe that are for thought preparation. They're carried out by appropriate educated beings, aided by magic technology, that are pre-elaborating thoughts that they then send to the different universes and life forms, so that they can move those life forms towards evolution. The higher the thought level that they imprint in that stream, or that they send in that stream where the life forms are, then the more evolution can happen. So it's all quite magical and mind-blowing. So that takes care of the Q&As of thoughts. That's it. And then the synchronic lines, and I'm going to read you my notes. So what are these synchronic lines? These are what the Chinese also know as the dragon lines, the ley lines. But I'll give you, according to the spiritual physics book, what they are. So what are synchronic lines? They are the intergalactic network, a communication web. They're made of energy, pure energy, and they're currents that transport energy, information, especially related to life forms. Where there is life, there are synchronic lines. They link star systems to one another, the sun to the planets, and where there are life forms or soon to be life forms, we have synchronic lines. So they are a big web that connects the whole universe together. The universe is together. And around planets, there are wrapped around these synchronic lines. Our planet Earth has 18 lines, 9 going horizontal and 9 going vertical. The vertical ones meet at the North and South Pole, and then they leave the planet towards the sun together. At some point they join, and then they go as one to the sun. The horizontal ones are just go around the planet, but there was a discussion with Crotolo around a spherical point at the center of the Earth, where there is some big forces coming through there, like possibly the Grail, where it seems that these synchronic lines, the horizontal ones, seem to be heading into. So that was just something we learned about a few weeks ago. So now, what are the elements that are transported in these synchronic lines? So they're energy, we know they're energy streams, and they are connected to life forms, and they have a purpose. They are a connection highway. So what do they carry inside them? And there is information of Earth's life forms and their evolution, plus that of other planets and other alien worlds. They have deceased beings. They have various energies that are moving through them. They're the energies of the synchronic energy, synchronic laws, and divine energy. So they're energy sources. And then now that we know what's transported, what do they look like? And how do you know where they are? So being energy forms, we cannot see them, not with our naked eye, not maybe most of us, maybe some people. But people can see them when they're doing astral travel, if they, I guess, know what to look for. Sometimes the landscape of the territory or what's happening in an area can tell you that there are synchronic lines there, because they tend to be high energy centers. So a lot goes on around them, because they carry not only energy, but also all this information. So they say the morphology of the land, usually 2 rivers, are a good clue. They can be on the Earth, above the Earth, or they can be underneath. So what you would see in places that have had in synchronic lines, and they move, they do move very slowly, but they do move. But wherever there's big inventions, because they're carrying information, wherever there's big events, important civilization, important structures. So Egypt, Maya, Central America would probably be a good guess that you have them, that they are there. Yeah, these historical places are mentioned. Aztec, Incas, the Nazca line, Stonehenge. Now, the physical dimensions, energetically, they can be up to 2 kilometers long by 900 meters wide. Inside, they have energy running side by side in opposite direction. And they're very important because not only they carry energy that you, if you know how to tap into it, you can absorb it for magical operation and magical technology. They have this synchronic energy. And what does that mean? It means that, and if they also, if you insert information, you can insert information into the synchronic lines, and guess what? Then it's dispersed throughout the whole network. So they, because you can, they have synchronic energy, they have the synchronic law, and if you can alter the information that's put in them, you can have an impact on what manifests in the world. And there's an important note, synchronic lines increase the energy of a place close to the anything that's close to synchronic lines, and especially when more than one line meet, which is called synchronic knots, the greater the energy in that place. And usually there are important events that happen in those places. Now, so how do you tap into the synchronic lines? So the way that you tap into it, first you have to find them, and then you have to find where two of them meet, because that's where there is a synchronic knot. Now the main lines you cannot access directly. You have to go access them through a minor line that is connected to this knot. And these minor lines are sometimes at the surface, where you can use a technological device to, if you know what you're doing, to use them. If they're under the earth, you use a subterranean structure. If they're above, you could use steeples, pyramids, temples, that kind of stuff to try and reach them. Now, this is a little bit of the Hogwarts Star Wars part. Important historical information on the synchronic lines. So up to the 1970s, the synchronic lines were under enemy occupation. They were not held by the good guys. And I guess people that control them control what gets put out into the world. So they were not in our hands. And they can influence, right? You can influence information. When Falco's job, when he came, was also to free these lines. And then between the 70s and the 80s, he did a couple of things. He mapped them and found out, and they each have different values and energy potential. So that was also important. So he mapped all of that with their energy potential. In the 80s, with an astral travel he did, is when he discovered the sphere at the center of the earth, and that they realized it was an important part of the planet. In 1975, the lines had been under enemy occupation, but there was some magical warfare, and they were able to take back some key positions. So they were able to have a little bit of redistribution of power on the synchronic lines. And remember, they can, by doing that, they influence events that happen not only on the planet, but everywhere. And then in 1978, they did the construction of the temple, because that's when they found the synchronic knots, or the shining type of synchronic knots, where 4 synchronic lines meet, which is the most potent place in the planet. And this happened to be underground, where the temple of humankind is. So none of the things that Daminator does is by chance. So that's why they did that. And then they freed up a little bit more for many years, continuing to free up. And then they had a bit of a breakthrough throughout this period for about 20 years. They had 2 operations going on at the same time. One was to perforate one of the lines because it was occupied. They couldn't do it, so they went through another access point. They were able to perforate one of the lines and do some operations. And the other one, they were working simultaneously to reawaken the divine forces. When you do that, you can tap into a lot of energy. We'll discover in the next chapter. So, they had able in 1975 to get some control. In 1978, they built the temple. Then finally, in 1990, so we're talking almost 20 years, they did an operation where they were able to get more. It was called the spherical operation, and they were able to really put more positive information into the synchronic lines. That really started to change a lot of things. At that time, there was a lot of scare and threat of nuclear war. Uncontrolled pollutions is what's mentioned in the book. And those operations helped to diffuse that. So that had an impact. And finally, in 1998, 8 years later, they were able to liberate 55% of the lines all at once through a new technology called concatenations. So that was really a breakthrough for them. And then finally, 1 year later, in 1999, they were able to free the rest of it. And then for another 2 years, they just worked on cleaning these beautiful lines and take control of them. So that was a big operation that they did. Now, how do they use the lines? So they use the spherical dispatches to put information into the lines, information that move us towards evolution, not destruction, like when they were occupied. These synchronic lines are an energy source. And now that they have this concatenation, they can tap into this and multiply this energy and multiply it. There's synchronic lines that are very deep in the earth called synchronic energy, which are 10 times stronger than the synchronic energy we have above. Then there is this telluric energy that's linked to intelligent forces of divinities of the underground, like Hades and demons. These are also very powerful energy that gave them access to that, and also time energy. So the synchronic lines really help them do magical operation because it allows them to collect all this energy. And also the sun is able to be accessed through the synchronic lines, the energy of the sun. And with the concatenation technology, they can also go outside of our territory now and look at synchronic knots and tap into that energy. So that is the synchronic lines. I hope you enjoyed it. And now we got that done. And we'll see you on the next recording, next Zoom call, which is the energy sources for magical technology. Bye, guys.